Hi everyone, this is Debbie from Project 39 Mini Albums, and I want to show you what I made with the By the Seaside collection from Kraft Creations. The minute I saw this, I knew I had to have it and use it. I just love the colors on it. So I picked up the collection for my July design team haul, and I did introduce that collection in the haul. I went through the pages, so I'll link that so you can go check it out if you want to see the pages in more detail. Now, there are a lot of vintage images. There are a lot of other ones that are not vintage, but I know some people have been saying that they don't know how to use or won't use the vintage images. So I haven't glued everything down because I want to show you how you can make a mini album using the vintage images in a collection like this or not. So let me show you what I made. So first of all, there's nothing vintage on the cover. I used some of the images from the collection I cut apart. This one I actually popped up so it might look a little dimensional. I added for some texture this grid stuff. It's very subtle, but you know, way back when people used to put drywall on their walls and they would use that to help patch it together. Well, I had about a 6 by 6 inch piece. I am out of it now, except for maybe a 2 by 2 inch piece. I just love it. It works real well. I'm just gonna have to find something else to use instead. I added a little bit of lace. I made flowers from leftovers of the collection. I used some dies that I had, but a couple of them I wanted a little larger than the dies, and I just cut out like 5 petaled flowers and made flowers out of that. I added some pearls. I had like half moon pearls just to add sort of bubbly look to the collection. But really what takes the center stage is this paper. And all I did was cut that out. That was all Kraft Creation, Tamara, who designed it. That's a fabulous page. So this is a, oh my goodness, how big is it? 8 by 6 landscape style mini album. It's got a couple more flaps and folds than I usually do. But I do have a tutorial on it, so you can stick around, or I might put it in the description box. Depends on how long it is. So I'm not really big on dangles, but I did have a couple of charms. This one is a seahorse. I know it's hard to see, and there's a crab. And then I had this teeny little bottle. I thought that you could put sand in that. And then I had a, one of those. And I put that on with a Tim Holtz attaching brad. I don't know, there's a word for that. And a lobster claw. So you actually could take this off if you wanted to get at the bottle. For the bottle, it had a cork top. I just took a piece of wire and stuck it in and glued it in so I could add it to that. So that is the cover. And then again, some of these pages are not glued in, so I can show you. So again, there are these vintage images. I'm going to take these out. This is a 4x4, a 4x5, and a 4x6. I wanted to show you photo mats in the book. So here, this is not a vintage image. This is actually not glued down because I wanted to show you. If you wanted to add these fabulous images, you can. But if you didn't want to, I mean, super simple. I think I liked it better that way. No, that's upside down. So again, you can add that. And even though it doesn't have any embellishments on here, you could add something. I mean, you could put a photo right there. Now I do have photo mats here, and I'm showing you that you can use that to put your photos on. If you want to mat the photos, that would be fabulous, but you don't have to, because there would be enough space around here that really would look fabulous with or without a photo mat. So that goes there. And then here's another one of the journaling cards from the collection. I actually just took a scrap of paper and put it on top to show you that you could use this with the vintage image, or you could just put this on top and then eventually you'll put a photo here. So again, just another idea. I did put some of those pearls in the corner. I've had it in my stash for a while. So this opens up. It's got a magnetic closure on it. You'll notice that the directions show you how to do 3 inches on the flap. You'll probably want it a little wider, like 3 1/4, to fit a photo mat if that's what you're going to use. So just one change to the instructions. And then here again is room to put your photos. So even if you don't have a 4x6 photo, which would look fabulous there, if you had smaller photos, you could put that on there and then you'd still have room to journal on the side, or just leave it plain or center it if you want. But 4x6 photos would fit on there perfectly. I know a lot of people get 4x6 photos and don't always have mini albums to use them. So again, we've got this image. So I temporarily put this down with ATG just so I could take it up. I will make it permanent once I've gone through this walkthrough. So there's room there for a photo. Now this opens up. There's a magnet here to keep that closed. You still could use that to put a picture if you wanted to. And then that opens up again. There was this image in the collection, which I put some of these adorable tags here. Again, these are vintage. You don't need to. You could just use that for scraps. I cut into this image so I could use that as a little tuck spot. I mean, without it, it's pretty cool, isn't it? And then you could put your photo right in there if you wanted to. Let me put these back, though, so they don't get lost. Aren't these adorable tags? I think they're just fabulous. And then this will open up again giving you room up here to put your picture or room in this pocket. I loved this seashell little tag, and I love the layers on here. But if you wanted to use the vintage image, there is this paper that's got the strips. It's got 4, I think it's 4, of this kind of design, and you can use that as the pocket. So again, just some ideas to show you how you can use the fabulous vintage images in this collection, or how to do the mini album and use that fabulous paper without the vintage images. So this is another one of those tags that came here. I did put a magnet below to keep this closed, so that'll give you some room. Those are images from the paper, but of course it's not vintage, so I don't think that would bother anyone. And of course there's room there for your photo. Wouldn't that be fabulous there to have a picture of everybody on the beach? So that gets closed like that, but there's more. So that'll open up like that. Let me go out a little bit. There you go. And then there is a side loading pocket, again with the images and room to put your photos or journaling on there. I mean, you could put a 3x4 photo there if you wanted to. Alrighty, and then this page, whoops, this was not closed properly. This page has this adorable image, which is the same as that one in that tuck spot I showed you. So that'll open like that, giving you room to put your photo. Or that will close, and then this swing tab opens, and that gives you some additional space. Well, I guess we could do the larger one. Wouldn't that be fabulous? I mean, I'm just loving it. Just loving it. And I will be doing other mini albums with different paper using the same tutorial. So make sure you subscribe so you can check that out. This is just a large side loading pocket. This is another one of those cut aparts that I added some pearls to. So that will go there, give you room to put photos, but there's still more on this page. And there is room here to put your pictures. So there is that. So this will open like that, and that opens like that. And what I liked about this, and that can come out, is that the papers coordinate, but they're not so matchy-matchy. I used these two images that are the same, but I just wanted to give that continuity to this set of pages. And once you get photos on here, which you could put a photo right there, it still will help everything meld together. So this will open like that, and then one comes down, and then this will open, and that will open. So there's a nice little surprise spot right there for a fabulous picture. You want a picture that's sort of a wow picture right there. But as well, this is sort of like a belly band, so you can stick some extra photos in there. And then our next page, this can come out. I didn't attach that. So if you wanted it vintage, you can use that as a pocket. If you don't want it vintage, you can use the fish and the starfish and all that as a little pocket. But to go along with this image of the gals in their swimsuits holding hands, there is this paper. So this has all those vintage images. So if you wanted to, on the inside, I already left one, but you could use that. So we could put a nice big photo smack dab in the middle and either put small photos on here or leave it blank, whichever you would like to do. Oops, that can go like that. And then in the final page, there's this same cut apart. I just loved it so much I used it again. I added this 4x6 journaling card, so that's there, and another photo map there. And the back page, I mean, isn't that pretty paper? It's just all pretty. So that is what I made with the By the Seaside collection, and I am going to just do the tutorial right now. So grab your paper, grab your scoreboard, your paper trimmer, your adhesive, and let's get started. All right, let's get started with the cover. So for the cover, I'm going to use 2 pieces of heavyweight chipboard that are 6 by 8, and the spine is cut to 2 1/4 by 6. I also cut cardstock, and I'm using the Kraft cardstock from Country Craft Creations. It's the Artisan cardstock. It's not linen, but it is Artisan cardstock, and I need 2 pieces that are 8 by 10 and 1 piece that is 5 1/4 by 8. I'm gonna start with an 8 by 10 piece and put it on my scoreboard, and I am grabbing 2 of my spacers, the 1-inch spacer. I'm looking at them thinking, boy, I need to clean them off one of these days. I mean, they get glue and all sorts of things. I am using the sheets of score tape, and I'm just sort of piecing some together with some score tape, 3/8 inch and 1/4 inch. The fact that it doesn't cover every single inch of the chipboard doesn't really bother me. You know, it's best to get full coverage, but just the fact that a little bit showing is no big deal, because I know I'm going to cover the, got a piece of lint there. It might just stay. I know I'm going to cover my cover with pattern paper. Alright, so I'm putting the 1 inch at the top and at the sides and pushing down. And then I'll take off my spacers and burnish real well. I'm just going to cover them all to begin with. So there, I pushed it against the top and the sides, pushed the spacer against the top and the sides, take off the backing of my score tape, and if you want to make your cover a different way or you just want to go ahead and do it, you can fast forward. I will try to remember. I have to make notes to myself to remember to go ahead to where I start making the hinge. If you want to do your album cover in a different way, that's okay. You know what? Whatever works for you. This method was designed by Tamara from Kraft Creations. This is a design team project. And she made it because a lot of people were having problems with the construction of it. And I think it's genius. Now, sometimes I still go back to the old method because I did that for many years before I did this. There's nothing wrong with that method either. Just like there's nothing wrong with some people use only score tape, some people use only art glitter glue, some don't use art glitter glue. So whatever, whatever works for you. I did not mind learning this new method just because it's got a nice, crisp, clean look. By the way, I'm using the 1.5 inch spacer now. When I cut the paper to cover the hinge, I add 3 inches. So this is 2 1/4, so I added 3 inches, so I have 5 1/4. So I'm going to have 1.5 inches on each side of my, did I say hinge? Of my spine piece. Alright, I'm going to move my scoreboard out of the way for now. I'm going to take my bone folder. So this one is, it was discolored. I think I was using alcohol ink or something. This one is addressed to my Kraft. It's the non-stick bone folder. You have to sometimes sharpen it with just sandpaper or even emery board. But I like this, and I love this bone folder. So this is a scoring tool. That's a bone folder. So they're both very cool, and you can get them from Kraft Creation. I love this guy. You could probably use this edge too. But I think this one right now has a better point. So I'm just making a line right close to the chipboard just to help this paper fold over. And what I like to do is take it and bend it using my work surface as a straight edge and then fold it over. So now I have those two, and I'm going to take my bone folder and help make that crease a little more pronounced, and making sure that I crease even off of the edge, because that's very important. We need to know exactly where the edge of the paper goes. So again, I'm pushing it down onto the surface, and so now you see you've got creases and you have all 4 corners. You can see the square. Let me move this out of the way and clean my work surface a little bit. I'm going to take my scissors and cut that square out. Just go along that score line and cut right to where those two score lines meet. We're going to use, so the squares can come off. And I used to, and sometimes I still do, cut across on a diagonal, staying about an 1/8 inch away from the edge of the chipboard. But this method is a no-fail method. Well, I say no-fail. If anyone can mess it up, it would be me. But I haven't yet. To get so your chipboard gets covered. All right, so now I'm going to take the edge, the folded area, fold it over, and there's going to be a little bit of overhang on this 1-inch piece. Let me see if I can find something dark to put under it. Let's use our pattern paper. So you see, it goes straight and then juts out a little bit. So we're going to just take the scissors, put one of the blades up against the top edge of your chipboard, and make a cut. I got that whole big piece. Can you see it? Where is it? Put it on this dark paper. That whole big piece came off of it. It's not a lot. I'm being sarcastic. There's a little more here. This one juts out a little more. So again, put the blade against there. I should use a longer blade scissors. This is overkill, but still. I'm going to fold over this one. There's a piece that juts out. Put that against the edge of the chipboard and cut off the teeny little piece. That way there is no overhang when you go to fold and glue everything. So see how teeny those pieces are? I'll put it here where there's no teeny. Now turn it over and do the same. So we'll fold this down. Take your scissors, put it against there. There was hardly any with that one. See, that way, again, there's no no overhang. I'm putting my paper back on my rack. All right, now let's continue. See all that remnants? That can go in my s'mores campfire starting material. I'm going to make sure this glue comes out the first time, because you know as soon as you turn the camera on it won't. So I'm going to take a bead of glue and go right along the chipboard. Can you see it? And then I'm going to go around the perimeter of that rectangular piece of cardstock and fill it in. Then I'm taking my bone folder, using the angled edge, and push that up against the cardstock. And you will see some of the glue coming out. Would it help if I got a little closer? So you see the glue coming out. Now I'm going to hold it with my fingers, use the bone folder, and just push and make sure that glue adheres. Fabulous. Beautiful. All right, let's do it one more time. Well, we'll do it 3 more times. Glue against the edge, around the perimeter, and fill it in. My thing with glue is you want to use enough to hold it, but you don't need too much. I mean, then you're just wasting it. All right, taking my curved edge, pushing it against the chipboard, and you'll see that the glue will come out. It really gives you a nice hold against your chipboard. And then I pull it down with my fingers. I go against that crease line and then finish filling it in. All right, now I always do the 2 long sides and then the 2 short sides. Don't know why. I don't think it makes a difference. I think you could do the 2 short sides and then the 2 long sides. Sometimes I put glue on all 4 sides and fill it in, but today is exceptionally warm where I am, and I don't want it to dry too fast, so I'm just going to do it a little bit at a time. If it was a damp day and cool, then I could. But that's also because I'm a little faster than I used to be on this. So this is called a baby wipe. It's not really just for babies, that I have washed, just rinse in the sink a little bit and lay on my table or whatever overnight and let it dry. And it is the best thing to clean up glue. When you rinse it out, you get rid of some of the fibers on it, so you don't get all the fibers sticking. And then you let it dry, and you can use it over and over and over, and then eventually get rid of it and get a new one. All right, pushing the glue up, folding it over. And that is perfect. Now I have a little teeny glue coming out here and out there. All right, now what I like to do is take the edge of my bone folder and go across the edge of my chipboard. I don't think it does anything besides give me satisfaction, but I love it. It's a beautiful cover. We'll go ahead and do the other cover the same, but let's go do the spine piece before we do the other cover. And I'll probably do the other one in fast motion because I don't want to bore you. All right, so we've already sort of scored it by putting the my scoring tool next to it. You can't really see it. I mean, maybe you can see it, slight indentation. But in any case, I'm going to take it and use my work surface, push it down, and burnish. Do the same with this one. Push it down and burnish. And we're going to do something a little different with the spine, so don't rush ahead. Push it down, burnish, push it down and burnish. All right, we're going to do the same as far as cutting these rectangles now. Cut right up to where those 2 lines meet. Gives you a little guidebook on where you're supposed to go. So I was talking about the little scraps go in my s'more campfire starting bin. It's just an old brown shopping bag, an old paper bag that's seen better days. You know, you can use them so many times and then you got to toss them out. But I put any paper scraps smaller than 6 by 6 in there, and they go in the campfire. I mean, you guys know I live and travel in my RV, and you might think we have campfires every night. We sit around telling ghost stories. You know, I rarely have a campfire unless we're cooking out on the fire, and then sometimes it's just as easy to use the grill. We don't have a grill that we carry with us. My husband has a smoker because he does ribs a couple times a year. But we only do a campfire when we have company. I don't eat s'mores every night. That'd be way too much sugar for me. Anyhow, so I did the same thing, cutting off all my little teeny triangles. There's my little collection. Now with this, we're not going to fold these over. We're just going to fold this over. So let's do that. Add glue, go around the perimeter, fill in, take the bone folder and push, whoops, I was looking at the camera, and then pull and push down. Yeah, I knew I would have some seepage here. It's a smaller area so the glue doesn't dry, but no big deal. Just take it and clean it. You ever go in your craft room and don't feel inspired? You know what I do when that happens? I make covers. You know, I don't know exactly all the time what size many of them I'll make, so I'll make standard size 6 by 8, 5.5 by 8.5. Okay, now that that's done, I'll do my little line here. So now I'm turning it so the chipboard side is down, and I'm going to take my bone folder and push down so the cardstock is almost flat with your work surface. And right up against the chipboard. Then what I'm going to do is go back with some glue. Now I don't know that Tamara does this exactly, but it helps. Well, I like to do it. So a thin bead of glue, not a very thick one. I'm pushing down, and then I'll take this and push it up, and that's all I'm going to do with it right now. I'm going to leave it up. So we'll do the same with this one. It's okay if it's more than what I wanted to do is I want the glue here to dry, to keep the cardstock right along the chipboard. So I'm just gonna make sure that's burnished, and I'm gonna let that dry. So I'll let that dry, and then we'll come back. Actually, in the meantime, I will do this one, and I'm gonna put this in fast motion so I don't bore you, and then we'll come back and I'll show you the next step. Okay, now I'm going to take this piece, I'm going to turn it upside down, push it down, and you'll see that usually the cardstock has adhered to the chipboard and it's still nice and straight and flat, which is perfect for what we're going to do next. I'm going to take my spine and put it on my scoreboard up against the left hand side and up against the top. Going to take, well, before I do that, I'm taking my spacer, and I am about 3/8 of an inch away from where the chipboard is underneath the cardstock. The reason I'm doing that is because I want to draw a line with the glue, and I can't draw a straight line. And then I'm going to fill this in with glue. So again, up against the side, and then I'll take, of course you're going to have the short edge against the short edge, push that right up against it, against the top, just to make sure it's straight. I'll take my bone folder and push that down just to make sure there's a good stick. So I'll do the same with this side. These are the best things in sliced bread. And now, of course, you can't put it here and put that there because it's going to be too big. So I've got half of this in, half of the piece I'm working on here, and then there's still enough room for this so I can push it up against the top. Okay, turn it over. And make sure that's adhered real well. Looking good, looking good. I'm going to take a scrap piece and see if this will fit. Yep, that'll be okay. So I'm going to cut this 6 inches. What we're going to do is have a piece to cover the spine, because you'll notice it's pretty wobbly. So if we cover the spine, it's going to help make it a little stronger. Let me cut this down. I say 6 inches. I am about a 32nd of an inch less than that. Sometimes I am going to use art glitter glue. Sometimes I am going to use score tape. You know what? I'm going to use a little bit of both. I'm going to take my I'm taking my 1/4 inch just because I'm almost running out of my 3/8. And I'm just going to put a couple of lines. I know I'm going over. I'll cut it down in a second. So again, I'm using both score tape and my art glitter glue. I'll burnish this, turn it over. And I just sort of gently went through where the adhesive is, and it's still leaving the backing paper. I'm taking the adhesive off. But what that does is gives you the ability just to pull that off. Oops, not this one. There we go. So I don't have a lot of score tape on there. Now I'm going to add glue in between the lines. and on both sides. You want to get a good stick here, because of course anything that involves your spine and hinge, you want to make sure it's going to be permanent. So I'm going to burnish with my bone folder. I don't want glue seeping out of the edge, so I'm trying to pull, if any glue comes, it goes out on this side, not on this side. But I do want to make sure I burnish real well. See, some glue did come out here. That's okay. And then burnish real well. What we're doing is we're having the fibers in the chipboard intermingle with the fibers of the cardstock. And that way you know it's going to have a good, strong, permanent adhesion. What also happens is when you're using tape as well as glue, the tape's going to hold it down even more while the glue sticks. Now I'm going to let it dry before I start to fold the album. So I'm just going to let it dry flat. In the meantime, we're going to get a piece for the hinge. All right, I have cut a piece of cardstock 5.5 by 12. My pages, no, 5 1/4. I'm sorry, 5 1/4 by 12. You could do 5.5. My pages are going to be 5.5 by 7.5 because I have 6 by 8 is the book. Sometimes I allow more room, but in this case I'm not going to. And I took a scrap and I scored on the scrap, and then I lightly folded it. I didn't glue it, but I sort of held it together. I put it on the hinge. I know it's the outside, but I'm just looking just to make sure that I'm going to have enough room. I'm going to have 4 pages in this book, which is unusual. I always go with 5 or 6, but oh well, I'm going to do different things. So this is going to be easy, and I usually have 3/8 of an inch gusset. In this case, it's going to be 1/2 inch. So you have to score from every 1/2 inch from 2.5, stop at 8. So every 1/2 inch from 2.5 and stop at 8. So let us do this. 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, 7, 7.5, 8. Now I'm going to do it one more time just to make sure I've got a good score on here. If you feel like you've got a good one, you don't need to do it a second time, but better safe than sorry. Okay. Now, so we've got, I'm going to turn this over and draw on it. So we have a set of hinges and then a gusset. So hinge, hinge, gusset. Hinge, hinge, gusset. Hinge, hinge, gusset. Hinge, hinge. Okay? So between each hinge, you're going to have a line. I want you to fold on that line, but don't do it yet, but you're going to fold on that line. So you'll fold 4 times in between each of those 2 sets of hinges. I'm going to turn it over. Well, I'm going to fold with the part that has the indentations. It goes down, and I'm going to fold coming up. So here's one hinge. There's the other one on that side. You can see there's my set. So I'm going to fold and burnish on the score line in between each set of hinges. So I know I need to go to this one. I'll skip 2 score lines and fold again on the third. Do it. And when I'm doing it, I'm making sure the sides are even. And one more time, meaning the sides of the cardstock match up. So we've got 4 very mild mountains. Then you could do it one of 2 ways. What I like to do is take my fingers, hold this down with my thumb, take my fingers, and your mountain that you made will grow to a bigger mountain, and then you sort of pinch it together, and then you've got your hinge. I'm using my fingers and thumbs to rub it and burnish it, and you see you've got that, you've got a hinge. Now the other thing you could do is go ahead and score. And then that does the same thing. Either way, I've just gotten used to doing it this way, but I think my fingers are trained to do it. So if you're just getting started, then I would burnish it. All right, now that I've got my 4 hinges, I'm pulling them all down towards me, and I'm going to burnish. Make sure they are folded exactly where they need to be. Then I'll turn it against going away from me. I don't have any glue yet. I'm just training the paper. And burnish. Okay, so now we've got our hinges fairly well trained. I'm going to turn it over. Before I get going with the glue, I'm going to grab a mat because I always make a mess with this. I'm going to take my glue. Used to do this with score tape, but then I'd go, it generally will stay in place because once you get your page on the hinge, it's going to hold it together. I really haven't had any problems with ones I've made 7-8 years ago. They're still fine, but I feel like you need to make sure that it adheres to the album real well. All right, so now I turned it upside down, and what was a mountain is now a valley. So I'm going to take my glue and put it on one side. You don't need to do both. That's overkill. And add enough glue in there that it's going to hold. That probably is more than enough. But what I'm going to do is turn it over, pinch that together, and make sure that it's going to stick. I'm pinching at the end and some glue is seeping out, so I'm going to clean that off. Yep, same thing with this end. All right, so you've got that. That's going to hold real well. Let's add glue to the other valley. Pinch it, squeeze it. If you get it on your fingers, clean it up because you don't want it to, it doesn't stain the paper, but it might leave a mark. I try to come as close to the top as possible, but not going over. When I'm squeezing it, I'm also using the tip of my fingers or my fingernails to make sure that the bottom is adhered as well, like the very base of your hinge, right here. And then last one. I don't always go to the very end of it because the glue will, you'll be moving the glue with your fingers and it will come out. See, I'm getting some coming out and cleaning it up as it comes out. All right, so we've got our 4 hinges. Now I'm going to take my bone folder and again pull it towards me and burnish. You still might get some seeping out. I didn't. Burnish each one individually. Burnish them as a group. And then I'm going to pull it towards me again. I turned it over and do the same thing. And that is all there is to making a hinge. There's nothing wrong with going back and forth a couple of times, making sure that the paper will move. All right, let me put this aside for just a second. If I cut this exactly the same size as the page, if I cut this 5.5 instead of 5 1/4, I would be taking my scissors and cutting off a little bit at the top. I'm telling you that just in case you forget what size and you have it a little bit too big. All right, so now this is where we put, to cover our spine, we put that piece of cardstock. I'm going to take my bone folder because it's blunt. If you have a good burnishing tool, I forget what to call this. If it's got a point, be careful. You still can use it, but something blunt would work better. Because what I'm going to do is fold this. Let me go out with my camera. Hold on. Okay, so I'll fold up and you can see right where the seam is going to be. And I gently push on there. Gently. You can't tell by camera, but what I don't want to do is make a hole in the paper. So I'm gently pushing as I'm moving the cover to more of a 90-degree angle. And then eventually I'm going to push it down and burnish. So now you can see where that crease is. We'll do with same with the other side. I'm just pushing a little bit more every time I go back and forth. And then of course I'm pulling this up and pushing it down. And there we have the inside of our book. I like it. Like it a lot. All right, now let's grab our hinge system and figure out where we're going to put it. So dry fit it first. And you can't see that well, but there's where the chipboard cover ends and the spine begins. The spine ends and the cover begins. You want to make sure you're lined center. Now I usually go down towards the bottom a little bit more than towards the top because I may have things sticking out up the top like tags or something with ribbons, and I like to have a little extra room. There's nothing wrong with them being over the top because it's pretty, but I just like to make sure there's room. You could do whatever you want. You could center it perfectly on there. So I'm looking right now to see how much room I'm going to have, and it looks like I'll have about 1/2 inch on 1/2 inch side to side from where one hinge ends and the spine and cover begins, and the same over this side. Now think about this. If you're going to do something with maybe a really large waterfall in the back or a gusseted pocket with a cover in the back that you need more room in the back or the front, then you can make allowances and move this wherever you need to. In this case, I'm just going to center it on here. I'll have 1/4 inch from the bottom of the hinge system, the spine, to the top of the hinge, and here I'll have 1/2 inch from the top of the spine to the top of the hinge. You got it? So in any case, just figure out where you're going to put it before you glue it down. Now that I'm going to glue it, I add glue in those seams where my hinges are. Again, I don't go to the very end because once I push it down, it's going to seep through. All right, so that's first. Then I fill that in. You want enough for it to stick. You don't want it to be crazy. And now here I'm not as worried about it because I usually cover this part with paper on the other side. And then I'll add more and more. And I usually don't put it down on the very edge because that's where my fingers will be holding it. So I'm leaving about 1/2 inch on each side. Holding it with my hand, figuring out exactly where I wanted it to go. Now you could draw a pencil line, but it's hard to erase. You could use your, if you have the small spacers, you could use that. I am simply going to eyeball it. The most important thing is that it's exactly perpendicular, is that the word? I guess you could use a T-square to make sure that it is straight up and down. I'm looking at it, realizing it needs to be a little this way. I can go down a little. I can come over a little. Okay. And I've got it where I want it. Okay, I've just placed it down. Now I'm going to take my fingers, and since there's an even number of hinges, there's an odd number of gussets. So I'm going to choose the center one and push down with my finger. Then I'm going to move a hinge on either side and go towards the center and push down. Then I'm going to move that back and go to the other side of the center and push that down. And then I'll go back to the next one and push that down. And the next one here. You want to work quick because you don't want your glue to dry, but also you want to make sure you get a good stick. So now I'm going to make sure the rest of this will stay down. Okay. And then if you've got a non-stick bone folder, you can go in, and I go right next to each hinge and push down. Go on either side of the hinge and then push them all one way and burnish. Push them all the other way and burnish. And then, because I know I had a little bit without glue, I sort of lift it a little bit and add some glue. It's not that important. It's not going anywhere, but just so I know it's got, again, a good stick. All right. Now, once you know it's dry, you're going to have to retrain it to fold, same as we did once we put that piece on. Just gently go down, lift your cover up as you go, and do the same with the other one. Alrighty. Now, while that's drying, I'm going to leave it in this closed position, and we'll work on the pages. So the pages are next. Okay, so we're going to need to cut 4 pieces of 7.5 by 11.5 inch cardstock to make the pages. So I'm going to do one with you and then do the rest in fast motion. So put the long side of the paper at the top and score at 1/2 inch, and then score at 6. And that's really all there is to it. What this does is it will make a tube that's going to fit over the hinge. So we'll take some scissors and miter the corners on that 1/2 inch tab, and then fold and burnish on those score lines. So burnish on this tab. I'm just double checking, making sure it's going to be in. So now I'm going to fold this so that tab is on the inside. I'm going to double check spacing. I've already made one, and see how that will fit on the hinge. Now I don't put it right down to the very bottom of the hinge. I leave, I don't know, about 1/8 of an inch gap. And this does have a pocket. In the walkthrough I showed you, I did not have any photo mats in the pocket. There was a lot of space in the book already, but you could add photo mats in the pocket if you wish. So now let's go ahead and grab some glue and put glue on here. Now you could add the glue on the outside, or you could fold the tab over onto the outside of that paper like that. So the reason you'd want to do it that way is because then there wouldn't be anything inside to impede putting the your hidden photo mat in that little pocket. You'll cover it up with paper so you would never know. But I choose to put it on the inside. Number one, I didn't put photo mats in this book, but number two, it really doesn't impede it that much. But that is an option. If that bothers you when you put in photo mats, that it seems to get stuck in the beginning, or you want it just to be empty inside, that is an option. So anyhow, I'm putting glue on that tab and folding it over. And I'm going to use a wipe just to get off the excess glue. And then I'll go ahead and burnish real well. And there we go, there's our tube. So I like to start from the back of the book when I put it in. Let me go ahead and make the other photo mats. Oh, they're all made. Okay, forgot where I was on the video. So now we'll just take that and put it onto the hinge. And so you'll notice I have it parallel to the bottom of the cover, so I know that this is straight. The whole key to this is if your hinge is on straight and your hinge was scored straight and you line this up parallel to the bottom, then your pages are going to be straight. So I just double check and make sure the movement is what I want. And then I add glue. I don't go all the way down to the bottom. I probably put glue on the upper 2/3. I don't know about you, but I can't draw a straight line with glue. And then I put it on the other side as well. And then I'm going to take my tubey thing and put it right on that hinge. And again, make sure it's lined up. I don't want it to go too far down on the hinge. I want to make sure it's parallel. So just take some time and make sure that it is straight. This is a good reason to use a liquid adhesive rather than score tape. A liquid adhesive, you've got some time to move, but score tape, you could heat it up or use some undo or something to take it off. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of the pages on, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, now I'm ready to put all of the different additions to the page in the book. Book is all ready. We've got our beautiful pages in, and I have numbered them, labeled them with abbreviation. So IFC is inside front cover, and that's page 1 front, 1 back, 2 front, 2 back, etc. And that's inside back cover. Just so I know what I'm doing when I start putting things in. I've cut out all of the pieces. It took me about half an hour. And now I'm going to put it in the book. I timed myself. If I cut everything, including the spine, the hinge, the pages, the chipboard, it took me an hour and 8 minutes to make the book cover to cover without decorating, of course. So just so you have an idea, if you are trying to push through and get stuff done, it can be done. Even this is a much more difficult album. Not difficult, it's not hard. It's just there's a lot of flips and flaps and pages are different. A lot of times I'll make the pages all the same. Alright, let's get started with the inside front cover. And the piece I have cut is 4 3/4 by 7. And I'm going to score on 3 sides, so that is 2 short sides, 1 long side. So I just put it on the short side against there and score down. And if I say score and I don't tell you how to score, it's at 1/2 inch. If I tell you 1 3/4 or whatever, then it's different than 1/2 inch. If I don't say it, if I just say score, I mean 1/2 inch. Alright, so here we go. And what I could do, something else you could do to make it go fast, is score everything and then go through and adhere everything. But when I'm doing a tutorial, I find it's easier if I... Oh, that doesn't look right. Oh, yes, it is. If I just go through and do page by page. Okay, so this is a side loading pocket. You could put it either way. So whichever way you prefer. I'm going to put it close to the where the cover meets the spine, not over that line, just about a 1/16 of an inch to the left of that line. So I am going to get started with gluing. And I'm just going to first glue the bottom piece. So again, I don't want to put it on where I'm actually 1/8 of an inch away, which is fine with me. I don't want to put it on the seam or where that page joins. And then I'll grab a piece of tape. And this is a trick I learned from Tamara of Country Craft Creations, that this way things don't get hung up, although this is probably going to be just as much of an issue. So I'll go ahead and do this. And I might go ahead and put a full piece of paper here. I don't know yet. I don't know. Once I get started decorating, I'll be more able to answer your question. Alright, and then put that in and burnish. And then before it's all dry, I'm just going to take the 2 top corners and sort of push it in a little. That'll raise this to make it easy to put something in, but it's not up high enough that it's going to get in the way. Alright, done with that. And now we'll go to page 1F. And for the front of page 1, you'll need 2 pieces. One is 6 by 7.5, and another one is 3 by 5. I'm going to bring out the scoreboard. The 3x5 one, you're going to score on the short side. So the long side's at the top, score 1/2 inch down the short side. And on the 6x7.5 piece, we're going to put the short side at the top and score on the long side at 1/2 inch. And then it goes without saying, or should I say it, that we miter the corners. So just start from that score line and cut just a little bit off. It helps so you don't notice the paper as much, and it just helps to, you don't get a lot of pieces piled up on top of each other. If you have a lot of pieces in a book, you'll notice what I'm talking about. In fact, on here, see here, there's 4 pieces on top of each other, but they're staggered, so it doesn't matter. So anyhow, I'm going to add adhesive, and I am using the Art Glitter Designer Dries Clear Adhesive. We all call it Art Glitter Glue. There is no glitter in it. It's made from the company that makes glitter, and they made this glue to attach glitter, but mini album makers, card makers, a lot of people found out that it is a fabulous glue for paper to paper. Alright, and now I'm going to add glue onto that bottom tab, and I'm going to just make sure I'm going to center it on here, and then adhere it down. And the reason I did that is because it's a 32nd of an inch below here. You have to just see where this page is going to end before you put that on. If you put this on, it might be, you might have to cut this page down, and if it's already on, it's a pain. So anyhow, that's all we're doing for 1F. Now let's go to 1B. And there's several papers for that. So first we have a 7x5.5. Then we have 5x5.5. 8 3/8 by 3.5. 7 3/8 by 5 3/4. Let us start scoring with the 7x5.5. We're going to score on the short side at 1/2 and 3/4. So score on the short side 1/2 and 3/4. And then when you miter that, you're going to miter up to that first score line. You don't miter both, just up to that first score line. I'm going to put that aside. And then this 5 1/2, I'm going to turn it upside down. It really doesn't matter, but I've got my writing on it and it'll just drive me crazy. So score at 1/2 and 3/4. And I'm doing that just to allow for a gusset. I probably don't need a 1/2 inch gusset. As a matter of fact, I probably shouldn't have 1/2 inch gusset. I don't need it, and it's going to add some bulk to the album, and the album won't shut as much. So if you want, you can just do 1/2 and 5/8. I've done, this is my 3rd album with this, and one came out okay and the other one came out chunky, so who knows. Alright, with the 8 3/8 by 3.5, we're going to score on 2 short sides and 1 long side at 1/2 inch. So I started with the long side at the top. Whoops, my fingers are getting in the way of my, so score, score, score. And with this one, it's 7 3/8 by 5 3/4. I'm going to put the short side at the top and score there. And now I'm going to miter here on the top And for this one, since it's going to be a pocket, we'll miter at the top. And then here where we've got the X created by our two score lines, we're going to go right across that score line. Right at the X. X marks the spot. All right, let me burnish this as well. So I usually fold into the bump. So the bump caused by scoring is here on the top now. When I scored, that created a valley. Then you turn it over, there's the bump. And I like to fold into the bump. But I just saw somebody on YouTube score on one side and then turn it over and score on the other side. And I thought, you know what, that alleviates what side you fold into. The reason that it makes a difference sometimes is if you have inferior paper and it cracks. It depends on what side you're going to score on and fold into. If you use this is the, of course, Kraft colored Artisan cardstock. It's not the linen. I think I've mentioned that before, but I forget what I said. And I'm putting my adhesive on that 1/2 inch piece and lining that up with the very side. It doesn't matter on this one. I find that I can just score once and fold, and it really doesn't matter if you fold into the bump or not into the bump. It doesn't crack. So if you're going to take all the trouble of making a mini album, use good materials. So I would suggest using the Artisan cardstock. And this is the first time I've used the Kraft, but I like it. I like it a lot, and it goes really nicely. All right, now we're going to take the pocket, and this is going to go, the pages will be open, and obviously we're going to line this up at the bottom. I've got the two flaps closed so I can hold it. I'm lining it up at the bottom. This is about 1/4 inch smaller than you have room for, so that way it will fit and it won't. It just will fit nicely, and it doesn't get in the way of the folding. And then we'll do our little tape trick. And then I will go ahead and finish by adding more glue. I see I have some coming out, so I'm going to grab my wipe and just get it before it does any damage. And then I just push in those two corners so it's not too flat. And then lastly, we will add this piece at the top. If you've seen the walkthrough, you saw exactly what happens to this page or how this page works, but I'll show you real quick. So we have the flap over a pocket, and you can round the corners if you want to. And then we've got this, and we've got that. And of course, I'm going to add either, you can add a swing tab or a magnet. In this case, I'm adding a swing tab. So this is my reminder to add my swing tab here before I glue on the decorative paper to that. So that'll open, and then voila, and you have a pocket. And that's what you can use all your little scraps from cutting all these pieces, you can add to the pockets. All right, let's go to page 2. Okay, for the front of page 2, you'll need a piece 7.5 by 6. You'll need a piece 6.5 by 4, 4 3/4 by 5, and 3.5 by 5. So I will grab my scoreboard. Whoops. So the 7.5 by 6, score 1/2 inch on the 7.5 inch side. So put the short side at the top, score 1/2 inch down the long side. The 3.5 by 5 with the short side at the top, score down the 5 inch side. 4 3/4 by 5 with the 4 3/4 side at the top, score down 5. Okay. And then with the 6.5 by 4, you're going to put the long side at the top, score it 1/2 inch, rotate it, and score on the other short side 1/2 inch. So let us miter all those corners. Man, my table is dirty. I need to do something about that. I will. Okay, there's that one. That one. That one. And the final one, the larger one. Okay, and I will fold and burnish on those score lines. Did I show you how much I like this paper? I know I did. Also, people ask how much of a pack I used. Pack is 25. And this pack was open, and I don't remember if I had used it or not, but I have 6 full sheets left. So at the most you'll need is 19 sheets. You may use less. Again, I don't remember if I've used it or not. I guess I should write that down when I do it. Okay, with this 7.5 by 6, and of course I'm going to add some adhesive to the 1/2 inch tab, and I'm going to line that up at the top. Another thing I have not mentioned, I may do it when I do the walkthrough, but this takes a lot of magnets. Now I try to use swing tabs so it's not, whoops, did I need to score this one more time. I usually try not to use a lot of magnets. I know it gets pricey, and I know that you don't always have them in your stash, but sometimes they really add something to a mini album. And in this one, where I was trying to get a lot of spots for larger photos, so that's why I have this, you're going to have to use some magnets. What's a way to do it without magnets? Well, you could use the swing tabs like I'm going to use. You could figure out a way to tie it with ribbon. You don't always need magnets. All right, this is going to go towards the left-hand side of the page. Make sure you don't go over, and make sure this page will close. So I would come down a 32nd of an inch from where this fold is, and burnish. All right, I only have that side in right now, and I'll get my tape. And then I'll add the rest of, whoops, there's my microphone I knocked down. And then I'll add the rest of the glue to the tabs and put that on and burnish. push just to make sure. Okay, then we close that. And here I have the bigger piece, the 4 3/4 by 5. And you could center this on the page, but I'm going to put it over to the side with about 3/8 of an inch showing over on the right hand side. And just put that right on the top. And then this one will go on the bottom. And just make sure it is even to the top piece. Okay. Okay, so that is for the front of page 2. Now let's do the back of page 2. Okay, so for the back of page 2, you'll need a piece 5 1/2 by 7, a piece 3 1/2 by 5 1/2, and a piece 4 1/2 by 5 1/2. So the 5 1/2 by 7, we're going to score on a short side with the long side at the top. And again, I'm just turning it over so my writing is not upside down. The 4 1/2 by 5 1/2, we're going to put the 4 1/2 side at the top, score down at 5 1/2. And 3 1/2 by 5 1/2, we're going to put the 3 1/2 side at the top and score down on the 5 1/2 side. So, handy dandy scissors. And I will be showing you how to make swing tabs. I will include that towards the end of this video, but of course during the walkthrough I described the different ways that I made swing tabs, and I think a couple of years ago I made an entire video about it. I'm sure I'll forget, so go to my channel and search if it is something you're interested in. And I'm saying I'm sure I'm forgetting because I am constructing this mini album, and there will be probably a week and a half go by before I decorate it. And even though I'll make a note, I won't have it all together. Okay, so now we're going to take this 5 1/2 by 7 and we're going to add adhesive to the tab. You know, and you don't need much glue with this Kraft colored Artisan cardstock either. You don't have to go crazy. So I'm going to put it on the right side of the page, but not over the hinge. We want it not to impede with the hinge. The page will still open and close without a problem, and this will open and close without a problem. I'm going to have a swing tab here. Let's do the 3 1/2 by 5 1/2. So add your adhesive. And I'm going to put that right on top of the last one, lining it up, top and bottom. And then this piece can go, it's going to go on the flap. It doesn't have to go right at the edge, but you could if you wanted to. Well, then you'd have to do something different because I want to make sure there's room for a magnet. So I'm going to have, there is about an inch between the edge of the page and the edge of this flap. So I'm going to have another inch. Now you don't have to actually, or I'm going about 1 1/4 inches, so there's 1 1/4 inches. Just visually, I don't want it to, I don't know, that's just me being crazy, but I don't want to have it, I want to plan for the size before I put it on. So since there's about 1.5 inches from the edge of the page to where this flap is going to be, and 1.5 from the edge of this flap to the end of this one. I'm just going to try to have that equidistant. So you have 1.5, well, 1.25 inches, 1.25. Okay, make sure it's lined up with the bottom of the page and burnish. So again, I mean, we could go like that or like that, whatever you'd like to do. But that is it for page 2. Now we'll move on to page 3. It's going fast, huh? Okay, page 3, you'll need a piece 7.5 by 6 and 6.5 by 6.5. Let's do 6.5 by 6.5 first. So put the 6.5 inch side at the top, any one. You're going to score on 3 sides. This is going to be a long, big pocket. So score on 3 sides. With the 7.5 by 6, put the 6 inch side at the top and score at 1/2 inch. We are going to grab the scissors and miter at this 1/2 inch tab. And for this one, which has the 3 score lines, I'm going to cut the top first, and then I'll go cut across the X's of the score lines. All right. Fold and burnish on the score lines. And this will simply, oh, did I do that wrong? No, I didn't. Some of my pages fold at the top and some fold at the sides. And I don't always get it right, but I did on this one. All right, I'm lining this up with the page, adhering it to the top, and burnish on your score lines. And then there is this pocket, and it's going to go right on the top like that. Now you could, if you wanted to, punch a little circle at the top here, and I will probably do that, but I don't have nesting circles. Maybe I do now. I'll have to double check and see, because I had gotten some more circle punches, but it's easier for me to cut the decorative paper and the base paper at the same time, just because of the tools I have. But there is such a thing as a notcher. You can just buy like a punch that makes notches. I tend not to get all the gadgets because I don't have that much space. Okay, here we go. You can put something in the pocket and that'll open, showing you the fabulous room inside. So that is the front of page 3. Now the back of page 3. All right, let's see what we got. This. I think that's it. Yes. All right, so what we have, and I'll grab my scoreboard while I'm talking, is 8 by 5.5, 4.5 by 3.5, and 7.5 by 4.5. The 8 by 5.5 we're going to score on a short side. I've got another book next to me. I'm just double checking and making sure that's what I meant. And then the 7.5 by 4.5 we're going to score on a short side. And the 3.5 by 4.5, put the short side at the top, score on the longer side, score on the 4.5 inch side. So if you're trying to make a lot of mini albums all together, Your best bet is to make the pages all the same. Then you can go through and cut all of the pages, all the flaps, all the decorative paper. You can just do assembly line, and that helps you go so much faster. But if you want to make a mini album that's a little different, then that's when you make the pages different. Just there's more intrigue for somebody opening up the different pages as they go. They're like, oh, what happens here? Oh, what do I do here? You know, it's sort of like a mystery. So again, this opens up like that. So let's put that on page 3, the back of page 3. Okay, so that'll go all the way to the left-hand side of the page. I'm going to make sure I line up. Wait, is that right? Yes. I've checked it 3 times. It hasn't changed. Okay. And then these 2 pieces are smaller than the page. I just thought it'd be neat to see the pattern paper peeking through. So the short one I put on the left side, the longer one I put on the right side, and I centered it on the page. So there's about a 1/2 inch from the top of the page to the top of the flap, and from the bottom of the page to the bottom of the flap. You don't necessarily have to do it that way. That is just how I designed it. But of course it's your book. You can do it how you want. Alright, and to put this on, I'm just lining it up with the... Does this go down? No. I'm lining it up with the other flap, and it goes on the front of the page. You could have put it in here, and that would it would have made it just, you could have done it that way, just for something different. All right, now we're going to page 4. Are you ready? All right, page 4 is 5 pieces. You'll need a piece 6 1/2 by 4 1/2. You'll need 2 pieces 4 1/2 by 5 3/8, and 2 pieces 4 by 5 1/2. Let's start with the 6 1/2 by 4 1/2. Long side at the top, score at 1/2 inch. I'm going to rotate again and score at 1/2 inch. So you have, it's going to be a belly band. So you've got the 2 score lines, top and bottom. The 4 1/2 by 5 3/8. I don't know why I have that size. I'm sure there was a reason. Put the long side at the top and score at 1/2 inch. This one I didn't write on, so I can go crazy here. And then the 4 by 5 1/2, you're going to put the short side at the top, whoopsie, and score at 1/2 inch. I know, if I didn't turn this upside down, somebody would say, hey, I can't see what you did on that because you turned it upside down. What does it say? But I will put all of the measurements in the description box. It doesn't matter that this is here. It doesn't matter at all. So you can copy and paste and print it out or do what you want. At some point, it would be great if I had another one of me, because I would rather make mini albums and tutorials than sit and write the instructions out. But if somebody ever wanted to do it for me, have at it. I'll send you these before they get published, before they actually are available for primetime viewing. It's an offer you can't refuse. Although you're probably like me and you'd rather just make the mini albums than write things down. Alright, I'm scoring and burnishing on all of those score lines. Now, I've been putting things in the book as I go. You don't have to. For instance, on here, we could put everything together and then put it in the book. We could, but I won't. So if you want to, you could do it that way. All right, let's grab my 6.5 by 4.5, and this is a belly band. And again, I had this off center. I had it about 1.5 inches from the right side of the page. You don't have to, you could center it perfectly. It's just a little bit off center. Okay. And then we'll take the 4.5 by 5 3/8, and one will go at the top of that belly band, and one will go at the bottom. So line it up, top and sides. And at the bottom, line it up to the bottom and to the sides. And now with these pieces, they're going to go to the side on the belly band, but to the left side of the belly, on the belly band. Now as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking it might be a little bit too, it is. It's a little bit too small. I guess maybe when I put the paper on, I'm sorry, it's a little bit too big. So I'm going to grab my little cutter real quick and cut this down. I should have dry fit it, but I didn't. And I'm just going to take off, I don't know, maybe 1/8 of an inch. And since this is the same size as that, but I didn't get glue on it yet, we'll do the same with that. So it's not a lot, obviously, but it's enough to make sure this page is going to close nicely. Yep. So, no harm, no foul. So again, make sure it'll close. Now I wasn't going to put a magnet closing these, but maybe I'll need to, just to make sure. Well, we'll find out once I decorate it. And line it up to the side, and even with the sides, or the top and bottom of the other one. So there we go. So we've got these pages will open, and this will open, and then this is a belly band, so you can put something real special inside. All right, 4B. Almost, ladies and gentlemen, almost done. And this is easy. We only have 3 more pieces of paper. We have 2 pieces that are 7.5 by 4.5. I'm going to score both with the long side at the top on the short side at 1/2 inch. I'm going to miter the corners. I'm going to fold and burnish. Now you've got a couple of choices. You can put, so one piece is going to go on the right, one's going to go on the left. You could put the right one on the top or on the bottom. You could put it exactly at the top or somewhere down. I don't think I'm going to have it up at the top. I'm going to have 1/2 inch. I'm going to put the one on the left hand side with, well, not even, how much? About 3/8 of an inch at the top. So this is not going smack dab against the top. And this one will go about 3/8 of an inch at the bottom. It just creates an interesting sort of stair step there. So there is that and that, and there is a fabulous page. Inside back cover, let's do it. All you need is a piece 8 3/8 by 4 1/2. So the book is 7 inches. Is that how big it is? 8 inches. 8 3/4. Oh, so the book is 8 inches. So normally I would add 1 inch to make a pocket. But in this case, I wanted to make sure that the pocket would not get next to the fold. So I made it 3/4 of an inch, 8 3/4 instead of 9. So I have 1/8 of an inch on each side, from the side here and over there. And I made it 4 1/2 inches because that was the piece of paper I had left over. All right, score on 2 short sides and 1 long side. Burnish, well, no, miter first. Now burnish. And those of you who follow me know that I usually do a top flap on my pockets. Why didn't I do one here? Couple of reasons. Number one, it's just to be different. And number two, I was thinking that I better make sure I have enough paper left to mat this before I go all crazy. Of course, I say that now. Sometimes I'll make an album and decorate it as I go. In this case, I just made it and then I'll decorate it. So I might find that I've used a lot of paper. All right, so again, center it on the page. Make sure it doesn't get in the way of the where the back cover and the spine meet. I will put it down. I'll grab my tape and put it down here. And then I will adhere this. And then I'm going to sit and look at the book for a second. I'm not going to start decorating it right away. I'm going to go get a drink of cold water, probably. Maybe some sparkling water. And sit and relax and congratulate myself on a job well done. There's lots of things going on in this book, but look, there's still room. So you still can add photos. Even though there's lots of things going on, it's going to be a fun book. It'll be fun to decorate. Of course, you've already seen the walkthrough, so it's not a surprise to you. I'm hoping, I'm assuming. But if not, you're going to decorate it the way you want. You're going to be able to use paper from your stash or the same paper I did, whatever. But it's going to come out fabulous.